published in the Auckland media who thought it was a sensible budget for difficult times.
Question number 2, the Leader of the Opposition, David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by his statement on the public sector staffing cap, quote, "Our revised cap won't include those at the front line, such as teachers, police, hospital staff and prison officers"?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, there is no public sector staffing cap. In fact, the number of teachers, doctors, nurses and police have grown since we've been in government. We have a cap on core government administration, which doesn't include the group the member mentioned.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Does he still believe teaching is a frontline service? And if so, why did he support the budget cuts to teacher numbers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, teaching is a frontline service, and that's why the government invested $512 million extra into education. And the important philosophical debate here is one to understand. The Labor Party think the only way to solve a problem is to throw more resources at it. The National Party believe...
Point of order.
That was a pretty direct question about staffing cuts.
Well, the Prime Minister did answer it, and I accept that maybe he was going on to add more than was necessary. Does the member have a further supplementary question? The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As part of the approval process for the changes, did his Minister of Education make him aware of the impact of scrapping the technology staffing component?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, that's not correct. The technology staffing component is not being scrapped. There is a change to the overall formula, and as the government has announced today, for 90% of New Zealand schools, they will either gain a teacher or full-time equivalent or lose a full-time equivalent. For all other schools, it will be no greater than 2 FTEs.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Given his statement, as he said just now, across the country for 90% of New Zealand schools, the change will be either plus or minus 1 teacher. Can he tell the House what proportion will be lost? How many schools will lose a teacher?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't have that to hand.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Is he aware that increasing ratios for years 2 to 3 means that some schools may have to cut reading recovery programs for 6- and 7-year-olds?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, no, I don't accept that proposition at all.
The Leader of the Opposition.
When he said this morning that he'd prefer his child in a class of 16 with a quality teacher rather than 15, was he aware that the median class size in state schools is in fact 28?
The Right Honourable Prime
Well,
Minister.
Mr Speaker, the important point here is that schools are funded off a ratio, and the funding ratio for a Year 1 class is 15. The member actually makes a very good point. A parent I was talking to today has 22 in the Year 1 class because that principal and those boards of trustees decide to do that. Facts of life are the government funds that school at 1 to 15.
Question number 3, Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Order. I've called Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by his statement that, quote, building a more productive economy, end quote, is a priority for his government?